You work hard to save your money, but every year, the actual purchasing power of those savings quietly drops. It creates a reality where prices climb faster than wages, making it difficult for the average person to preserve the value of their time. Economists look at this through the lens of time preference. When money holds its value over decades, you have an incentive to plan for the long term, to save and invest. But when money leaks value, that incentive flips. You're pushed to spend or borrow immediately because the future is a moving target. For thousands of years, humans have searched for a form of money that can resist this decay. But the monetary systems we rely on today are built on a specific structural vulnerability that makes that search nearly impossible. To see how that vulnerability formed, we have to look at what gave money its value long before any government was in the picture. In economic history, the quality of money is measured by its hardness. This isn't about physical density, but how difficult it is to produce more of it. If anyone can easily create more of a currency, they will inevitably flood the market, crashing the value for everyone else. On the Yap Islands, this led to the use of rhinestones. These limestone wheels were valuable because they were incredibly difficult to produce. Carving them and transporting them across the sea required immense labor, which meant the total supply couldn't be easily manipulated. Eventually, the world converged on gold. It won because of its stock-to-flow ratio, a measure of how much new gold enters the market relative to the total amount already in existence. Because gold is so rare and difficult to extract, that new supply is always a tiny fraction of the total stockpile. During the 19th century gold standard, this reliable hardness underpinned an era of international peace and technological growth. Because the currency was tied to a physical reality that couldn't be printed, people could accumulate capital and trade across borders with a stable unit of account. Gold provided the hardest money humanity had ever found, but its physical weight made it difficult to move. This logistical hurdle required gold to be stored in central locations, a necessity that would eventually undermine the entire system. Since physical gold is expensive to transport, societies began centralizing it in bank vaults. Instead of the metal itself, people traded paper receipts that represented ownership of that gold. Once the gold was concentrated in these vaults, governments were able to break the link. They replaced gold-backed notes with fiat currency, money issued by decree that can be printed in any amount at any time by the state. This centralization created the Cantillon effect. When new money is printed, it doesn't reach everyone at once. Those closest to the source, banks and government agencies, get to spend it first before prices rise. By the time that money reaches the edge of the economy, its spending power has already been diluted. This shift also changed the scale of conflict. Historically, wars were limited by a state's treasury or its ability to raise taxes, both of which have natural political limits. But when a government can expand its own money supply to cover its deficits, it can sustain massive military operations for years without the immediate resistance of a tax hike. The fiat system removed the hardness that gold once provided. To escape this trap, the world needed a form of money that combined the speed of digital communication with a supply that no central authority could ever increase.
In 2008, an anonymous developer named Satoshi Nakamoto proposed a system that would allow individuals to send digital cash directly to one another without a bank or a government acting as an intermediary. Instead of a central database, Bitcoin relies on a distributed ledger. Every computer in the network, or node, keeps its own copy of the record. To change the ledger, you don't ask a bank, you have to prove it to the entire network. This is achieved through proof of work. To add new transactions to the ledger, miners must expend real-world electricity to solve complex mathematical puzzles. This creates a bridge between the digital world and physical resources. By requiring a verifiable cost to secure the network, Nakamoto made it expensive to cheat. This anchored Bitcoin to the same principles that gave gold its value, the reality of scarcity and the cost of production. But removing the bank was only half the problem. Nakamoto also had to ensure that the production of new coins wouldn't just speed up as Bitcoin became more valuable. With any other resource, a price increase triggers more production. If the price of gold doubles, miners find ways to dig deeper or process lower-grade ore, eventually increasing the total amount of gold on the market. Bitcoin solves this through the difficulty adjustment. Every 2 weeks, the network looks at how much computing power is mining.
If more miners join the chase, the math automatically becomes more difficult, keeping the supply predictable. No matter how powerful computers become, the issuance of new coins remains the same. The supply is indifferent to the effort used to create it. This engineering leads to a fixed limit. There will only ever be 21 million bitcoins. You cannot lobby for more, and you cannot mine them into existence any faster than the protocol allows. This is the first time humanity has had an asset with absolute scarcity. Because the supply is fixed, increased demand doesn't lead to inflation, it simply makes the network more secure. This characteristic sets Bitcoin apart from the thousands of other cryptocurrencies that have launched since. Most altcoins have developers, marketing budgets, and founders who hold significant portions of the supply. This creates central points of failure. If there is a person or a team in charge, that person or team can be influenced to change the rules of the money. Bitcoin occupies a different category. It was launched anonymously and functions as a spontaneous, ownerless protocol. Much like the internet itself, it exists as a set of rules that no single entity can rewrite. Any digital money with a management team is ultimately just another form of the fiat system. Only a truly leaderless network can provide digital cash that is resistant to human interference. Today, Bitcoin is increasingly used as a global settlement layer, a neutral system that doesn't belong to any specific nation or central bank. It functions like the physical gold settlements of the past, but with the ability to move across the planet at the speed of light. It provides a finality to transactions that doesn't rely on the permission of an intermediary. By returning to a money supply that cannot be inflated, the incentives for long-term planning are restored. When your money is a reliable store of value, the focus shifts back from short-term borrowing to long-term saving. Bitcoin is a tool designed to remove human discretion from the monetary supply. In doing so, it provides a functional alternative for those seeking a return to the principles of sound money and individual economic autonomy.